Hello everybody. She has introduced me already. I am a homeopath and a counselor by profession. Yeah, and today I have taken up this topic which seems to be a little absurd when it comes to children. You know, you would feel that, where is the stress and where is it coming from and everything. So definitely in the course of the whole thing, we'll understand what am I, going to talk on this stress and how we can see those symptoms, signs in children and how we can deal as parents with those. Yeah, and I'm glad to see many of the fathers here because it's usually the mothers who are majority always in my sessions. So it's good to have you all here. Yeah, so we all are here with the aim that we want to help our children the best. So with that aim, we start with the session. In between, if there is any question, anything that comes across your mind, just feel free and just talk, because it's more of an interactive session that I would want to have rather than, a monologue that I'm just blabbering, right? So stress is something that we commonly associate with adults, right? But today this term has no age bar as it prevails even in the younger children. And why are we dealing here? The main reason is that these children, they being very small, this is the foundation period. This is where, that they will grow up as adults to face the challenges, the problems, the stresses that they will, face when they become adults. So that is why it is important for us to know what they are feeling, experiencing, sensing, perceiving at this stage of their life. Yeah. So first we need to understand what is stress. Stress is a very loosely term that we use, Mera kaam nahi hua, I have loads of work in the office, I have loads of housework to be done, there is no time and everything. This is what we call stress. But in simple words, stress is just a disparity between the situational demands and the child's ability. It is just that a child is not able to cope up with a situation. It could be any situation. So, a child psychologist once asked, whether stress is good or bad. He says stress is never good or bad. It is how one perceives it. Because without stress, you are not really alive. You will not have challenges. You will not have things to be focused on. So, stress is important. But when it interferes with your development or with the growth of a child is where, we consider it as a problem. So as a toddler goes through different stages of development, he will be presented with multitude of tasks and demands particular to his age. Every stage of his life, he is going to have some or the other difficult situation or a task. And each of them could cause a considerable amount of stress. It could be many reasons. Simple reasons like separation, from parents can cause anxiety. Now, I am the cause of stress for all those children down in that room because I have separated them from their parents. Because their whole identity is with you all, right? It could be simple an arrival of a new sibling. Many of you must be having elder children who are siblings to these. And you might be facing the same issues, where when the second child comes, there is some amount of insecurity, some amount of sibling rivalry, some amount of envy, some amount of behavior change that you see. It could be simply a potty training thing, Go to the toilet and do your susu and not outside and not on the bed. So these are also things, being ill. Stress between mom and dad. When they witness certain, a discord between the parents is also a source of stress. And there are many others. So let's categorize them and understand them in a proper way, There could be academic pressure, parental pressure, separation anxiety. There could be biological factors. It could be television, the television, the most fascinating thing for a child. Unmet expectation from the self, social stressors, discord between parents, lack of time management. All of these can create stress. So let's understand each of them in a little detail. In between, if there is anything you want to ask regarding your child, you can just raise up your hand, I'll stop and we'll have a discussion. Yeah? So academic pressure. How many of you want your kids to be doctors, and engineers and lawyers and CAs, or you want them to do good? What you want your child to be? So he's already. So see, here this is a simple example that I'm trying to give, that we have already somewhere down in our hearts have decided what we want our children to be. And that's where we are going to force them. If that person wants his son to be a doctor, I'm sure he's going to force on the science subject and biology and force him there, even if whether he's interested or not interested. That's that. There is a rat race to get good scores and grades. Nothing other than being first is accepted. You can see this, this child who's at the last, anyhow I have to come first, so that I'm appreciated, I'm acknowledged for things. Right? There is a parental pressure to perform. Often parents compare their child with other children, forgetting that their child is a unique individual and it has its own strengths and capabilities. This is very common. उसका बच्चा तो पूरा ABCD बोलता है, मेरा बच्चा अभी तक पूरा Z बोलता ही नहीं है. You know, he knows so much of numbers and my son does not, and his son speaks and my daughter does not. There is always a comparison, and this is how you put it forward to your child. Imagine, see, the children have only two sources of learning right now at this present moment. One is parents and the other is school. School is hardly 2 hours. Baki, out of the 24 hours, 22 hours, they are practically with you. Every word, every gesture, everything counts. Imagine what influence we have on the child's mind right now. So a small comparison can actually hamper the child's growth, making him feel lack or deficient. Yeah. So this is where, this is, a comparison. A comparison also happens between the two kids of your own. Your elder and the, mera bada beta, my elder son would have done this, he had done this when he was 2. You are still 2 and you have not done this. That comparison comes. That is another form of stress. Lack of time management. There is no time for recreational activities or play on account of burden. I was surprised to know that kids, even in their nursery and play schools, have the homework sheets given, The time for play or recreational activity comes down. And as and when your child grows, you will put them into all sort of classes because you don't want your child to lack in anything. You want him to be the master of all the fields. Isn't it? And that's the vogue. That's in fashion. My child goes for 4 classes. Oh, my child goes for 5 classes. He goes for chess also. Do you know that? So then there is no time, and then the children find it difficult to manage that time. The other thing, we have mental or physical disability. Now this is something which we come to know a little later period of time, because this is too early to diagnose or to understand this. But many children suffer from learning disabilities. Now Tare Zameen Par was a beautiful movie to incorporate dyslexia, where people have just got that concept. But it's not only dyslexia, it is one term. We don't want to label our child, but definitely there could be many problems, where he might be facing. It could be dyslexia, or it could be dyscalculia, where, where he will have difficulties in solving maths, calculating things, addition, subtraction. It could be poor concentration. It could be ADHD. Today, many of the children have this problem of hyperactivity. But this generation is like that. How far are we? Every other child is hyperactive. So you do not label that child as ADHD. But of course, so when these things, when the parents or the teachers do not know and they put force on the child, it causes a considerable amount of stress. Right? Home environment. Poor interpersonal relation between parents. Now this is the primemost thing. We feel that the child is too small to understand anything. He or she will never understand what are you talking, but definitely those vibes are always there. The child is a person who observes, who understands through vibes. That's why, that we say that, when a child is unwell, you touch the child, you caress the child, because he can understand the sensation through touch. It is also when he can observe and he can feel. So, high stress levels are seen in children where they witness their parents fighting, or where there is a critical case of a divorce between parents and when they have single parents. So your toddler is very good at sensing vibes. If you're anxious, worried or sad, many a times you will be surprised that your child will come to you saying, "Oh mama, you look sad. Why are you crying?" You know, because he can feel it even though you don't tell him. Social stresses. Through ragging, though ragging is strictly banned, you know, in everywhere, but a child is always bullied by the elder group of children. So it simply results into poor self-esteem and lowers the confidence in the self. Imagine a child who has a lower self-esteem and lower, you know, self-confidence right from this age. How would he be able to manage the challenges that are going to come up ahead? Peer comparison and rejection by the peer group. It happens in many of the older age group children. Unmet expectations from self also create a negative stress. Now, where do these expectations come from? It comes from us as parents. We input them with things that, you know, you have to get 90% or you have to get this, or you have to get an A plus, or you have to get a B, you know, whatever. You have to stand out, you have to do the best drawing, you have to participate in everything. So they understand that, you know, when I do these things, will I be accepted and loved and taken care of? You know, my mother or my father will appreciate me when I will do these. So they are put in an environment. We put them in an environment. They are not accepted for themselves, but only for things that they are going to achieve. Yeah, isn't it true? Biological factors. Children are supposed to be like blooming flowers. They are supposed to be full of life and full of energy. You know, not like these dry flowers that you see. But some children are sensitive by nature. That they are more sensitive towards many things. So they might land up into, you know, where the normal children would have accepted things gracefully. These children, you might find that it is more, you know, they will require more time, more attention to grasp those things. And of course, in some cases, there is a family history of a psychiatric disorder which needs to have a special attention in terms of, you know, where the child will probably require some kind of medication or some kind of counseling so as to get over it. Separation anxiety. As I said, you know, parents leave their kids home with maids for partying. Many times, you know, this causes fears and nightmares. You might see that many of those children get up in the middle of the night, you know, just startled and crying, and you do not know. And the child, being so small, does not know how to tell, you know, that I have seen a bhoot in my dream. And even if the child says that I have seen a bhoot, you will say, "Oh, shut up, there is no bhoot, sleep." This is how we react, you know. For them, it is difficult to understand that you will come back. So when you leave your child in the school, why do you think they cry? Because they have, their whole identity depends on you. So they feel that you will never come back and you're just going to leave them. That also has a certain amount of stress. It does not mean that you don't send your children to school, but this is how we have to understand and then deal with it. Television cartoons. Amazing cartoons we have, you know. Whether it is Chota Bheem, whether it is... I recently went with my niece to a movie called Arjun. I thought it would be a movie to show courage and warrior type, you know, somebody, you know, Arjun representing from the Mahabharata. My God, this was the scene that was shown. You know, too much of violence and bloodshed and swords and fighting and things like that. I was wondering, what impact will it create on a child's mind? And it was supposed to be a children's movie, an animated movie. These kind of things also imprint upon the mind, because your visual memory is always sharper and longer staying than your auditory or any other memory. Iसीलिए, you know, when a child is very small, you start to show him books of pictures. The whole concept behind that is, when a person sees, when the child sees an apple, he can, you know, then he can, that picture gets settled in his mind and he knows that A, okay, apple. That image just pops up whenever A comes. And because that visual memory is more long lasting. So these TV cartoons, when you show, when these children see, what are they, you know, what impact are they having is, you know, what we have to just wonder. So these were the certain causes, you know, majority of them that have been included, that these are the factors which